Chapter 7. The Serpent's Smile. Adrian Lucero stood in the dimly lit conference room of the Global Unification Initiative headquarters, high above the smoldering ruins of a city that once pulsed with life. The towering skyscraper, one of the few left untouched by the chaos, cast an imposing shadow over the dissolution below. From here, he could see the streets still littered with abandoned cars, fires glowing like embers in a dying world. The air was thick with smoke and the distant wail of sirens. And yet, Adrian smiled. It had begun. He clasped his hands behind his back, his reflection faint in the glass before him. The world was crumbling, just as it needed to. The weak were being weeded out, the dissenters exposed. Soon, the last remnants of the old world would be erased, and from its ashes, something greater would arise. Something unstoppable. A sharp knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Enter," he said smoothly, not turning. The heavy door opened with a hiss, and a woman in a sleek charcoal gray suit stepped inside. Dr. Celeste Warren, one of the highest-ranking officials within the initiative, exuded a quiet ruthlessness that Adrian had come to admire. Her dark eyes carried an intelligence sharpened by ambition, but also the weight of fear, though she would never admit it. "We have reports from civic centers," she said, stepping forward. "Most of the newly registered citizens have complied. A few did not." Adrian turned to her, arching a brow. "Define a few." "A couple hundred across multiple locations," she admitted, adjusting the tablet in her hands. "Some refused to register. Others tried to flee. A handful attacked the officers. Most were neutralized." "Neutralized," Adrian echoed, a smirk tugging at his lips. A polite way of saying they were executed. She didn't flinch. He liked that about her. "What about the tracking devices?" he asked, stepping away from the window and taking a seat at the long obsidian table. "Are they functioning as expected?" "Most are, but there were anomalies." Adrian leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "Go on." Dr. Warren hesitated for only a second before swiping her tablet, pulling up a report. "We flagged an individual in Sector 12, a man named Ethan Matthews. He was given a tracker and instructed to report to the Civic Center. However, we lost his signal." Adrian's smirk vanished. "Lost it?" "We believe he removed it." Adrian exhaled sharply through his nose. Foolish. Predictable. The desperate grasping of a man who thought he could outrun what was coming. "Find him," he said simply. "We already have a team searching," she assured him. "We believe he is traveling with a teenage boy, his son. They disappeared from their registered residence last night." Adrian nodded slowly, considering. There were always stragglers, those who refused to accept that the world had changed, that he was now the architect of its future. But they would fall in line, they always did, or they would perish. "Accelerate the security measures," Adrian said, standing. "I want full compliance. If they resist, make an example of them." Dr. Warren hesitated again. "There are still many who are uncertain. They've lost families, they're confused, looking for answers. If we push too hard, too fast—" "Do you doubt me, Celeste?" Adrian asked, his voice soft, yet dangerous. Her posture stiffened. "No, sir." "Good." He took a step toward her, lowering his voice. "Because hesitation is weakness, and weakness is a disease, one that we cannot afford to spread." She swallowed, but nodded. "Understood." Adrian reached out, brushing his fingers against the tablet in her hands, before looking her directly in the eyes. "Do not underestimate them. There will be those who resist, those who believe they are fighting for something greater than themselves." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Faith, morality, divine justice." His lips curled. "Nothing more than the last illusions of a dying age." He turned away and walked toward the vast window once more. Soon they will see the truth, he murmured, almost to himself. Dr. Warren inclined her head. I'll have the search teams double their efforts. Good. And Celeste? She paused at the door. Bring me Ethan Matthews alive. She nodded once before slipping out, leaving Adrian alone once more. For a long moment he simply stood there, gazing over the city, his expression unreadable. Then slowly he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small obsidian pendant, the edges carved with ancient symbols. The metal was cool against his skin, pulsing faintly as if it had a life of its own. A low voice curled around his thoughts like smoke. All is proceeding as it should, Adrian. A slow smile spread across his face. Yes, he murmured, gripping the pendant. Soon the whole world will bow. And the shadows behind him stirred. Celeste's heels clicked rhythmically against the marble floors as she strode down the corridor, her fingers tightening around the tablet in her grasp. Her pulse pounded. Whether from adrenaline, fear, or something far more dangerous, she was not sure. Adrian. He was intoxicating. His presence, his control, the way his voice slithered through the air like silk wrapped in steel. Every time he spoke, she felt a pull, a gravitational force that compelled her to stand closer, to prove herself, to bask in his approval. But she also feared him. She had seen what happened to those who failed him. They weren't merely reassigned or reprimanded. They disappeared. And Celeste had no intention of vanishing. As she neared her private office, she inhaled deeply, forcing composure. The moment she was inside, she closed the door and pressed her forehead against the cool metal, squeezing her eyes shut. He had spoken to her so directly, looked her in the eyes, trusted her with his orders. A slow, shuddering breath escaped her lips. I will not fail him. She moved to her desk, setting her tablet down before placing her palms flat against the glass surface. Her reflection in the black screen stared back at her, calculating, cold, yet beneath the surface, raw desperation brewed. She wanted his trust. She wanted him. Shaking the thought away, she focused on the task at hand. Ethan Matthews. Celeste pulled up his file, a man who had been unremarkable until now. A wife, deceased, 2 children, 1 taken, 1 left, and now he was missing, off-grid, a problem, a threat. Adrian wanted him alive, which meant he saw something in Matthews that Celeste did not yet understand, but she would. And when she found him, Adrian would see her as indispensable. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she accessed the surveillance data. Where are you hiding, Matthews? She whispered, a smirk forming. She would not fail. She couldn't. Failure meant exile. Failure meant death. Failure meant losing Adrian's favor, and that simply was not an option. From the radiant expanse of heaven, Claire watched, her heart torn between sorrow and awe. She had seen the earth darken beneath the grip of chaos, seen the city streets become graveyards of the lost, but her gaze remained fixed on one thing, them. Ethan and Daniel. They moved swiftly through the shadowed streets, their footsteps muffled by the thick silence of a world unraveling. Ethan's face was set, unreadable, but Claire knew the storm raging within him. She saw it in the tension of his shoulders, in the way his fingers flexed and curled as if grasping for something unseen. Daniel followed close behind, his young face paled beneath the glow of the moonlight, his wide eyes darting between the darkened alleyways and the towering skeletal buildings. Stay together. Keep moving. Do not hesitate. Ethan had whispered those words before leading his son into the night. Claire could hear his voice, could feel the urgency that laced every syllable. They couldn't stay in the abandoned warehouse. The initiative would come, and they would not show mercy. Claire's fingers tightened against the golden railing of the balcony from which she watched. She was not alone. Beside her stood Emily, her daughter, her light. "Will they be okay, Mama?" Emily asked softly, her small fingers curling around Claire's hand. Claire turned to look at her daughter, the warmth of heaven's light catching in the deep brown of her innocent eyes. "I don't know, baby," Claire admitted. Emily tilted her head, considering. "Jesus said Daddy is strong." A gentle warmth flooded Claire's heart at the mention of his name. She turned her gaze towards the golden city behind them, toward the soft hum of the voices lifted in eternal worship. Not far from them, the king stood, watching the same scene unfold below. He was never unaware. "I wish I could tell them we're watching," Emily murmured. Claire smiled, pressing a soft kiss to her daughter's hair. "They know." And deep in his heart, Claire believed that Ethan could feel them, watching, waiting, and praying. Ethan crouched low, pressing his back against the cold brick wall of the alleyway, his breath controlled but shallow. They had moved through the city undetected so far, but they couldn't risk staying out much longer. Every block was more dangerous than the last, and the shadows held more than just fear. They held hunters. The initiative was looking for people like him, people who resisted. "Dad," Daniel's whisper was barely audible. "Where are we going?" Ethan glanced towards the next street, then upward. There. An old tenement building. It had been a safe house for a small Bible study group that Claire used to attend. He hadn't been a part of it, too preoccupied with work and the everyday distractions of life. Now he wished he had paid attention. Now he needed them. "This way," Ethan grabbed Daniel's wrist, pulling him forward. They ran silently through the back streets, ducking into an abandoned shop before slipping through the shattered remnants of a back door. Inside, the air was stale, but filled with low murmur of voices. Ethan's pulse quickened. They weren't alone. He pushed forward, stepping into a dimly lit storage area where dozens of people were huddled in the darkness. Families, children, the elderly. Faces he recognized, neighbors, friends, even some who had mocked Claire's unwavering faith just days ago. And every single one of them bore the same expression: desperation. A middle-aged man stood from the crowd. Ethan recognized him instantly. Pastor Robert Hayes, the man who led Claire's small Bible study group. Hayes exhaled a visible breath of relief, stepping forward. "Ethan, Daniel, you made it." Ethan's throat tightened. For now. He turned, securing the door behind them before meeting the pastor's solemn gaze. "Now tell me," Ethan said, "what's our next move?" And in heaven, Claire watched, unseen but present. He was beginning to see. He was finally beginning to believe.